Have you ever dealt with the situation where your assumptions or your prejudice have been confronted?
Oh, yes.
Can
I'm
you
sure.
think of one situation where you
uh,
learned a lot from?
Boy, I can't off the top of my head. I tend to be a person who experiences things and moves on and hopefully logs them to be a better person, but I don't tend to dwell a lot in a lot of past stuff. So sometimes I don't come up with stuff. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's constant. When you're dealing with people, if you aren't convinced that you're the smartest person in the history of the universe and know everything, then you should be able to pick up things. You should learn where you've been wrong, where you know, in your perceptions, right? You can't say, well, my perceptions, I was wrong because my perceptions were wrong. Your perceptions are based on what you have. If you're honestly exploring things to the best of your ability, then you're going to come up with the best perceptions you can. If you limit it that or make it exclusively a dogma, then yeah, you're probably messed up. But as long as you're open and trying to learn from others, here's another tool we have. This is my favorite tool. It's called below the line. So below the line, I was really confused by this when it was brought up in classes. I thought below the line meant you were not achieving things correctly. Like, oh, you're below the line. But below the line is about issues and interests. Issues are the things in a conflict, for example, that somebody says they have a problem with. I'm mad about whatever, or you know, a lot of times the things that are being said that the conflict's about aren't really what the conflict's about. They're things that are below the line, which are interests. And interests can be known. I can know what my interests are, and I could be using an issue to try to kind of push to get my interest fulfilled. Sometimes I'm embarrassed of my interests. Sometimes I feel like I'd be put at a disadvantage if I really brought out what I'm upset about. The problem is if you are working to solve an issue and the interests are the real problem going on in the conflict, solving the issue isn't going to solve the conflict. It's only going to be solved in the interests. Interests often are subconscious. They're things we carry, that we think about ourselves or we think about our world that we don't even really recognize we feel. And so, and to help resolve conflict, you don't actually have to identify, or somebody doesn't have to identify. It's just you, as you're working through this with somebody, if you can kind of figure out what some of their below the lines are, known or unknown, you can help the conflict get resolved positively in a way you couldn't if you didn't go below the line. The thing of it is, number one, you have to learn about somebody to be able to figure out their below the lines. You have to get to know them. You have to ask them questions. You have to listen really well. You have to observe. And then you have to have theories that you kind of test. You can't know for sure, even if your below the lines are right. One of the things I love about below the line is, and this is kind of apart from resolving a conflict, once I kind of learned this process, I started thinking about people I had a disagreement with,
Mhm.
or a leader I might not, why does he do that? Why does he do that? I mean, how often do we say that about something? Why is that person doing that? Well, when you start looking at people in a below the line aspect, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to agree with what their below the line interests are, but those interests can help you understand why they act a certain way. And by understanding why they act a certain way, you can be more at peace with it. I hope that makes sense. So I can say, instead of just being upset, why is that person always doing that? I can be like, okay, I get it. This happened in their past. This is important to them. These are things going on. That's why they respond this way, or that's why they say this thing, or that's why they do this type of thing. I'm not sure I agree with it, but now I understand it. And so I can kind of work with them better because I understand where they're coming from. And I can kind of be at peace with it a little more because we all have those anyway. And so I hope I explained that well. Below the line's a
Absolutely.
hard concept to explain, but it's awesome when you kind of get it.
This is so interesting that this makes a lot of sense, but in some situations, you don't really have that kind of conversation with the person of interest, and you
True,
have no idea what they have gone through in life,
true.
or they don't even talk to you, let alone explain what their background was.
Yeah,
How can you deal with that situation without basically harming anybody,
yeah.
or self-esteem or confidence or the other person's?
I mean, you are going to not have the level of tools and skill at being able to resolve a conflict that you would if you did. And that's where I say the time to learn about somebody isn't once you get in conflict. You should be learning about the people that are important in your life or that are a part of your life well in advance and getting to know them as deeply as you can so that it's just better for the relationship anyway. But then when you do have a conflict, you're not trying to figure these things out. Then you have a lot of it. A lot of people will, in intense conflict, kind of reveal a lot of stuff. I will say that.
True.
So you can pick up quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have that in advance and you're trying to do it on the fly, you're probably not going to get too far unless you can really keep the conversation going, get emotion down, and really ask a lot of questions and kind of start to reveal some things. But you're not going to be able to test those theories very easily, and you don't want to test theories in a way that would insult somebody. So then you're left with the basics again, bringing emotion down, trying to fix the relationship in such a way, if it's an important relationship, if it's a valuable, some a relationship that is mutually beneficial or that you want, and then you might be kicking the can down the road a little bit. But again, hopefully you learn from that and say, well, I don't know enough about this person and I really need to ask more questions, spend more time with them. They won't talk to me. Well, I mean that's their choice. You can't force them to talk to you. If they won't talk to you, then there is probably no relationship. And even if it's forced, well, it's not going to work. I mean, unfortunately, there are times where people make decisions and it's not going to work.
Radical acceptance.
What's
In
that?
Radical acceptance in this kind of situation, because you cannot control everybody.
Right.
You
Nor
can only
should you want to.
What happened?
I said, nor should you want to.
Co
It's
ex
hard enough to control yourself. We don't really need to add, add on a lot of other people, I don't think.
This was very well said. It's so hard to first try to control yourself, because this is controlling oneself's emotions and oneself's mindset, way of thinking, and everything. It's a whole lot project that one can take on for life,
Good, yes. Yeah.
right? Let alone taking on projects on other people. Right?
I mean, I've tried it. It
But
doesn't work.
yes, but we think, I mean, I'm gonna say we, but most of us don't. But we think that it's easier to change other people than
Mm.
ourselves.
Well, yeah, or we think other people need changing and we don't need the changing, which
Yeah.
obviously, again, isn't true, and not in a negative way. Again, we all need to change, hopefully in a more positive
Wow.
way. But yeah, I mean, that's when we stop changing, when we stop growing, I don't know why we're here anymore, you know?
So true. So true. So, do you think that the way of handling conflict
Mhm.
would be part of the problem as well? Does conflict have to be handled certain way in order for it not to escalate?
I mean, for sure, and that's what the tools, really are designed to do, to try to, because conflict's gonna happen. I mean, conflict's an absolute. There's no relationship that doesn't have some sort of conflict. How big, how bad it gets depends on a lot of other factors. A big chunk of those are using the tools. Approaching conflict, confrontationally probably is gonna just make the conflict worse. Being insulting, responding to defend yourself instead of trying to hear somebody. I mean, there's so many things. Yeah, people do it all the time. That's why conflict conflict is a huge, I don't know if the word would be epidemic, but I mean, there's conflict going on all the time. It's ruining relationships. It's limiting performance. It's stopping things from being amazing. And at the same time, conflict, because it's an absolute, provides an opportunity to grow relationships. If you do it right, you can grow relationships. You can increase communication. You can learn new things. There's a whole list of amazing things from conflict. So people are afraid of conflict. They avoid conflict, right? But avoiding conflict doesn't do it, because if you have a conflict, it's not, I guess maybe it could, one out of 100 times, maybe. I don't know. It's not going to go away. It's not just going to magically disappear. Oh, it just resolved itself. It's not, it's going to be still there. If you don't address it, you're still going to have a conflict. And if you don't address it, it's probably not only going to be there, it's going to grow. It's probably going to start involving other people, because people don't, if they don't share their conflict with the person they have the conflict with, which is the only person that can resolve the conflict, they tend to go share it to other people to try to make sure that they're right. Now, those people are involved in conflict. So the conflict grows, it grows in intensity, because if I don't resolve the conflict, then it's eating at me. And then everything that's going on is seen through those lenses. And that's why it's so important to learn conflict management skills, is because that does help you to not do the wrong things and to hopefully do the right things, because there are a ton of wrong things that people do all the time that either escalate conflict, create conflict to begin with, and certainly stand in the way of having a positive resolution. And then when I'm listing all the things that are good about conflict, those are only possible if you positively resolve conflict. If you work, even if you get what you call a resolution, but you didn't do it the right way, it's probably not really a resolution, because both
Mhm.
parties probably aren't going to be happy, especially over the longer haul.
Right.
So the only way you get the positive things is by using those skills that unlock positive resolutions. And if you do other things, yes, you're probably going to escalate. You're probably going to, we
Yes.
get in our way all the time, sometimes intentionally, sometimes, most of the time, just lack of skill, just lack of knowledge of how to work through things, or how what you're going to do or say is going to be received, because we get stuck in our own head.
For sure. So let's imagine this situation where somebody is aware, somebody has the intention of win-win in mind, and then enter the conflict or tension. Tension.
Hmm.
How one can differentiate between the ego,
Mm.
self-truth, or authenticity in that kind of situation.
I'm not sure. Explain a little more. I think I know where you're going.
So imagine a conflict. The conflict happens. So
Yep.
there's a conflict, and there's a situation where like things are at stake, and then you go in with the intention of I'm not gonna just go in to win and impose my
Right.
ideas and way of thinking on the other person. I'm gonna go in there to solve and create this win-win situation. And then they respond certain way that might not always be ideal or
Right.
always look be pretty on
Yeah.
the app. So then they go, "Oh my God, am I responding from my ego, or is it my authentic truth, authentic self, or my truth, or my even values that are being spoken out? And it's not my ego for me to win." How do you
Yeah.
know the difference between those 2?
Well, I mean, again, you can't force somebody to do things right. And if you have skill in managing conflict and they don't, there's probably going to be more of a that opportunity to, like, I'm doing the right things and they're not responding. But I also think those skills, those same skills, addressing emotion, good communication, thinking below the line, building trust, there's other skills. As you use those, you're going to influence a person, even if they're high on ego, even if they're determined to be right. There's ways you can ask them. I mean, the best thing is honestly asking questions. So listening, yes. But when you ask other people questions, people tend to not like to be told things. They tend to not like to be told, you need to do this, or this is how things need to be. But when they're asked and they answer logically the best way, and they hear their own voice and it's coming from them, they're much more receptive to those things.
What kind of questions? Can we have some examples?
Yeah, I mean, anything that, that's in the situation. Do you think this is the best way to resolve this? Or what are, I mean, it's hard to come up with questions for the specific, for different specific things, but the questions are going to come up in the natural course of whatever it is. It's just a matter of, I think a better way of saying it would be whatever you want to say, whatever you want to tell somebody, can you think of a way to ask them a question that causes them to think through it and either gives you new information that you need or has them speaking the solution that you already know.
Right.
But me telling you this is the resolution, this is the way things need to be, we need to do this, or you need to do this, most humans don't like that. It's not, they don't have ownership over that. That's being told to them. Even if they nod their head and agree, then they go away going, oh, wait a minute, you know, he told me, what tell me, you know, but if you're asked, if you want to tell somebody, or you think this is the best solution, or if you want to find out more and you think this is the best solution, but you'd like to find out more, you ask them, and maybe they come up with something that you didn't think of that's way better. Like, oh, if as long as your ego is in check yourself, I mean, you should be curious. You should be wanting to learn all you can. If they can't come up with something better, then you do want to try and push what you believe is the best solution. But another thing, I guess this is another, so I don't know if I think it's tool number 4. There's rarely one solution to any problem. Like, we get fixated on we need to come up to this solution. Well, that solution may not be the best. It may not be the one that works. So part of the process is trying to discover together, because there's ownership in together, there's not ownership in being told, to discover together as many possible solutions as you can come up with, and then figure out which one is the most satisfactory or the best. We get very fixated on there needs to be the solution. Well, there are situations in this lifetime where there might be one and only one solution. Those are going to be very rare. And I encourage people to be very creative, very brainstorming, very cooperative and collaborative, and come up literally how many different solutions can we come up with so that we can then select things that make us feel, okay, I get this and you get this, and these make sense. This is the best solution. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That reminds me of one of my drama teachers, actually, who said there is no problem, there is only solutions.
Solutions based thinking goes a long way in life.
Mm. Yes. So the conflict is important for growth
Mm,
if we look at it in a productive way and
yeah,
as a tool, a catalyst, if you will, in order for us to grow and evolve.
yeah.
So, how to step into discomfort without losing the confidence?
Hmm. Um, I think you have to get so this is a phrase that's been around, get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if you can step into discomfort if it's something new, something you don't do. I don't step into discomfort. Well, then when you do, it's going to be, I mean, anything you do that you're not prepared for. Back to conflict. People don't address conflict because they're scared. They don't know, they don't have the tools. When you don't have the tools or the practice, that causes fear. If I go into a test and I don't know the answers, I don't know anything about the test, I'm scared of the test. If I go into a test and I know every answer back like the back of my hand, you don't tend to go in afraid, right? So that's the same thing with conflict. I think that the only way you can get through discomfort is through practice and intention. Um, that's just how we're designed. Otherwise, it will be uncomfortable and you won't be effective in using it. So then that goes back to something else we talked about, right? You have to be willing to learn some of these skills. use them, not use them right, re-examine that, go, I I need to review my skill set. I need to look at how I use those skills. It didn't come out the way I wanted, so I need to fix these things next time. And then next time it's better and better, and then the discomfort goes away. I don't know if there's a substitute for discomfort early on. I think that's just part of life and part of the process. We have to go through uncomfortable things until we make them comfortable through skill, through repetition, through learning, through self evaluation.
That's right. Isn't that why we came into the world, just to be uncomfortable and learn something?
I think it's uncomfortable from the moment we arrive, right?
Until we leave and transition and we become
I
comfortable.
hope so.
That's the story for another time. How do you rebuild trust
Mhm.
after it was truly shattered?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we all recognize that trust isn't easy to build for most people. Some people a little easier, but most people, trust is hard to build. It's easy to lose, and it's even harder to rebuild. You know, I sometimes you can't rebuild it because one or more of the people involved aren't willing. They just are, nope, I will never trust you again. Okay, well, then we're not getting anywhere and there is no relationship. And so we have to be able to recognize, as bad as or as sad as that is what it is. It's sometimes it's not that that's the perfect or that's the way it should be, but humans have control and they can make those choices. I think I'll start with this, and this is why I did address this in the book. A correct apology can go a long way towards rebuilding trust. It's probably critical. Um, and I say correct because I think we all have seen apologies or experienced apologies that weren't apologies. They didn't make things better, they made things worse. I'm sorry you felt what? You're sorry I felt that's not an apology. That's not taking responsibility for your own actions. That's not showing empathy and concern for me. That's telling me I don't want you to be mad at me or I don't want to feel bad about this. So um a correct apology that's authentic, that takes responsibility for those things that responsibility needs to be taken for, and that also I think is best when it also gives like and in the future, you know gives a declaration of what will be different in the future. And then the other thing on that is, and this is actually funny as it is, this is tool number 5: follow through. You have to do what you say you'll do. So trust will the best way to lose trust is to say I'm going to do this or I'm going to be this way, and then to do not do it.
Lack of integrity.
And how is anybody ever going to trust you? Like if you so that's the best way. And it's also in terms of conflict, you can go through the whole process, use all the tools, get to a great resolution. Terrific resolution. Okay, we've agreed to this. This is how we're going to resolve this conflict. This is awesome. And then if one or both parties don't do what they said they will do as part of the resolution, the conflict has never been resolved, and it's going to come back stronger, worse, less trust, much harder to build trust. So that's another part of that. It fits within the trust is integrity. I think that's a terrific word you used. Do what you say you'll do, be who you say you are. Follow through correctly and consistently and long term, not just once, but make those changes and prove that you're trustworthy. You can't have trust if you don't prove you're trustworthy to begin with, right? Just saying, trust me. I mean, usually when somebody says, trust me, you're automatically, oh, I don't know about this. Prove it. Don't say it. I mean, say it, but follow through.
Oh, through integrity, consistency,
Hmm.
and long term stability, basically.
Yeah.
The things. Why is it so hard to admit one's mistake? Why
Mm,
is it hard? We rather like go around the bush,
yeah,
blame, shift the blame, and shift responsibilities, and not take responsibility for the mistake.
yeah. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I mean,
Experience.
it makes us feel like we're in a weakened state or that people are going to take advantage of us or people are going to think less of us. And we're not logical enough to say, well, if I'm holding to something that's obviously stupid, like that isn't true, like that everybody can see I'm just doing this, I'm not wrong. Well, it's really obvious you were wrong. Then but we still hold to it because I don't know. I mean, it's not logical, is it? To not take responsibility. I suppose there are situations where somebody truly believes they're not responsible. That's where you hopefully go through the conversation, ask questions, and maybe if they are responsible, they can be enlightened as to where they're responsible. And then maybe they'll feel bad about that if, again, depending on the type of person they are. Again, we are humans. We make mistakes. We don't do the right things. We don't do the right things for ourselves. We don't do the right things for others a lot of times. And you can't force people to do the right thing. And so we're protective. We're under attack, or we feel like we are under attack. I mean, there are a lot of people that try to cut others down for their own benefit so they can feel better, so they can get ahead, or so they can get an advantage. Not everybody's like that, but there are enough that I think from the time we're little, being teased by the neighbor kids or whatever, we we kind of go inward and build a protective shell. And part of that protective shell can be, I'm not gonna, you know, admit to anything. And then there's the other extreme, right? The people that just, oh, it's my fault. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well,
Mhm.
maybe it's not your fault. And that's not any more beneficial or any more helpful to them or to others. So it's trying to live in that middle, which is hard to do as humans, where we take responsibility, but we don't take responsibility for things we shouldn't. And we work with people and try and communicate with people and get to the best solutions.
Lovely. One last question.
Sure.
What are some of the universal principles about connection that you would teach your students or people that you would love people to take away with?
What do you mean by connection?
Your principles about connection between human beings
Mm.
is effective, creates healthy relationships.
I'm not. Hopefully, I'm going to answer this to the question you're asking. I always think of it. Kind of goes back to something I talked about before. At least my view of this. And if this isn't answering the question you asked, then I will be happy to to try again. I love team. I love people working together. I love seeing a group of people rise to a new level because they needed each other and they helped each other. And so that's kind of, I guess my initial thought is that's how I would put these things to my athletes, for example, is cross country and track are individual sports, but I never treated them as individual sports. So a lot of people think of cross country as it's one runner and they're trying to run a certain time and they're on their own. Well, cross country to me is five people scoring for the team and two more people helping the team and what they do together. So we did a lot of pack running where they worked together and talked to each other and built connection and had to trust each other. That's kind of how I look at that is you look at what you can gain from the people around you, knowledge, accomplishment, new ideas. There's so much that you can gain. If we are siloed, we are stuck. If all I have is my own head, it's not going to be a great place to stay. We need each other. We need to work together. That's why conflict is so important because that if you do it right, that builds those relationships. It builds all the different aspects that are vital to growing. And if you do it wrong, you're killing all those aspects.
You answered the question beautifully. Thank you very much, Bill. I really appreciate your insights.